Okay, this is my second time now that I will address Benzie's video. Everything wrong with Eve Echoes. And I'm sure that is loosely meant because the amount of stuff that's wrong with this game kinda would need more than 27 minutes for Benzie to address. But there are a few things that I want to talk about. In this video he will mention that we can comment what we feel about the game and comment about his thoughts. So this is my way of addressing Benzie. This is no personal attack, and I'm in no way generally disagree with what he feels. Now I will listen to this video with you guys, but I will cut the stuff that ain't relevant to the points that I'm addressing. I will also link this video in the description if you want the uncut version. And I do think he got some great points that are minor that I will not address, so check out the full Benzie experience down below. Once again, this is not to say that anyone is right or wrong, but I think that Eve Echoes should not take all the blame for what he did wrong. After all, this is personal feelings mixed with what us players have discussed for years.
Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome back to another video for Eve Echoes. Do be aware this is literally going to be like a podcast. It's just going to be me talking.
And me.
There's going to be no relevant graphics on screen or anything, if I even bother to add anything other than just an image for the entire thing. Just put this on in the background, listen to me talk, and, well, let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with what I'm saying. It was a fantastic game. It looked like it was going to break so many trends, that it was going to be a mobile game that didn't fall into the usual traps, that it was going to be something unique and special. Unfortunately, as we all know, over the past few years, that has kind of unraveled and it's become like every other mobile game ever, a pay-to-win nightmare.
Welcome to mobile games.
Small ships got horrifically nerfed. And with hindsight, it's easy to see that folks had upgraded to larger ships during the tests and were confused as to why bigger simply wasn't better. In fact, I was partially guilty of this. If you watch my very first video about the Stabber during the first beta, I was a little confused as to why the sites were taking longer. It's because of tracking. Now, I didn't understand the mechanics, and at the time I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just stick with the Destroyer. But apparently other people looked at that and went, well, why is it that the Cruiser isn't as good as the Destroyer? And it is. It was supposed to be done for different content. That, you know, you'd have higher tier anomalies that didn't have as many fast moving frigates, and therefore, you know, the Cruiser would be the better option. It was this moment that going between open beta and final test when you could look and see that the frigates and destroyers had had massive nerfs. The cruisers had kind of been rebalanced, battle cruisers were fine, and battleships actually got buffs. We saw immediately massive tracking buffs to the battleship size weapons at the time, and this should have been a clear indication that bigger is better is the mentality they were going from.
Yeah, so advancing and upgrading to bigger ships shall not make you be able to be better. I don't really get this point. Where's the push to do anything unless you can't improve with items or, in this case, ships? Every game have this, except maybe some FPS games. But really, farming instances for gear, finally getting that epic sword in the raid, yeah, why not keep the leather gear at level 1 and just beat the game with it? I'm not sure that not advancing or upgrading to bigger stuff is a valid argument here. We all cannot fly in frigates all the time and expect us to make the same amount of money or have the same kind of content as people who has better gear, for example. That's just not how games works. Now I do want to say that, of course, I think we should have more stuff to do as frigate pilots. But I've heard this issue before, and people want to do stuff in frigates and make just as much money as people in battleships, and I don't think that's fair either.
Now, the second thing I've noted down is that the tech level system. In Alpha, it was clear that this was a system that had issues. I mean, back then, during the Alpha, you actually had to have certain skills trained to tech up in general. Like, you couldn't go from Tech 5 to Tech 6 just with time. You needed to actually have certain skills, and I think one of those was like advanced mining or something.
Yeah, this sucked balls. But they changed that into an even worse tech tree.
Which meant even if you wanted to be a combat pilot, if you wanted to hit Tech 6, you needed to train advanced mining, which was just awful, genuinely awful. So they kind of fixed that, but still made it worse. Yes, I've written here in my notes, imagine being forced to train mining skills as a combat pilot. Now, it quickly became clear that
That was actually a thing in EVE Online before, that I think you needed to have some basic skills that was not relevant to what you were aiming for. But they changed it in EVE Online, and of course they changed it in EVE Echoes too.
Tech progression was meant to be a stick-around reward. Unfortunately, it's also completely wrecked the game by making it so the players need to be Tech 10 in order to complete. This simply doesn't happen in EVE Online, and let me explain that.
Well, it did, but it's not anymore.
Now, in EVE Online, if you're a brand new player and you use a referral code, you've got 1 million free skill points on day one.
I'm just gonna say that's not much skill points. I would even argue that 1 million skill points in EVE Online is less than 1 million skill points in EVE Echoes. I got no data on that, so I just have the feeling. I might be wrong.
That's enough to undock something like a Kestrel or a Tristan and jump into faction warfare and do pretty well with it. It's
Okay, if you think that a new player in EVE Online can just jump into a faction warfare in a Kessie, saying that he will enjoy the time as the PvP is more fair in EVE Online, is simply not true. There's nothing fun as a day 1 PvPer in EVE Online. The same with an EVE Online day 1 miner. What actually makes players stay in either of the games is the connection with others. EVE Online might not have the tech level system that we specifically are discussing at the moment with EVE Echoes, but EVE Online has a very steep learning curve that you do not get in a few hours. So instead of spending some time to gain tech levels like 6, 7 or 8 or even tech 10 in EVE Echoes, you in EVE Online have to sit at the PC for years learning this game. So the time spent is probably less in EVE Echoes, and the price is still the same each month.
It's good enough. And yeah, okay, you might be going up against players who've been playing for 10, 20, well, almost 20 years at this point. But those people may be sitting on, say, 100 million skill points, but there are only so many skills that are actually relevant to the ship that they're flying.
And that is true, but it's the same in EVE Echoes.
If you're flying a Kestrel, for example, it doesn't matter that you've got battleship tier skills or large hybrid turret skills or any of the resource harvesting or stuff like that. There are only so many skills that actually matter as a Kestrel pilot, right?
Yes, and that's the same in EVE Echoes.
Right? And that doesn't require 100 million skill points. That's actually fairly low down on the list. And also, the way that skills work in EVE Online is that essentially the 5th level of a skill costs more skill points than the first 4 levels combined, which means a lot of people only train to basic 4 in the...
Okay, that's interesting. I did not count, but I'm pretty sure that the time is the same in EVE Echoes. Most players have 440 in skills, with a normal, advanced, and expert, and the time to get 553 or 554 is vastly longer. It's kind of the same skill progress as in EVE Online.
The skills, like, you have Rocket, whatever, 4. You have Caldari Frigate 4. Okay, the Frigate skills probably most people do take to 5, because even though it's more to get it to 5 than it is to get it from 1 to 4, it's still cheap. But the point I'm getting at is it's not actually that many skill points, and you're probably not going to be that far behind most people that you go up against. Like, if I'm undocking a Kestrel as a day 1 player, my skills aren't that far off someone who's undocking a Kestrel as a 10-year player.
Okay, starting again, comparing the games, and thinking that you even have a slightest chance to win a PvP against someone who actually are out to PvP, but have 100 million skill points more than you, is bloody hair slim at best. Skill time is your least problem in this situation.
The difference is that they have a lot more knowledge in how the game works than I do. But if, for example, I rolled a new account knowing how the game works, I could still get good fights.
Good fights. Yeah, so can I do in EVE Echoes? But who does that? Who makes a new character? I'm sure EVE Echoes might need a week or maybe 2 to get into a ship with enough medium slots to be able to fit a scrambler to actually hold the enemy. But I still think that EVE Echoes is easier to get that, first win than in the actual EVE Online. Simply because it's easier to get into EVE Echoes. It's easier to learn.
I could still get really good fights. That's simply not the case in EVE Echoes. In EVE Echoes...
Oh sure, it is. It actually is. You can get some really good fights in EVE Echoes.
If you're a day 1, day 2 player, basically the first month you can fly anything up to Tech 7. After that, yeah, it's a long time to get to Tech 8, Tech 9 or Tech 10, so...
Yeah, it is a long time. I agree.
You're kind of stuck in this situation where I could be flying a slasher. Everyone else is going to, or slasher 2. Everyone else is going to be flying a slasher 2 interceptor, which is just hands down a better ship.
I might have clicked too quick. I want to listen a little bit more.
And by the time I hit tech level 7, I can actually have all of the frigate skills trained all the way up to Expert 4, Expert 5, but I still can't undock the best frigates.
Oh, okay. So this I agree to, but it's the same in EVE Online. However, the difference between the games is ISK. As a new player in EVE Online, you can fly a small frigate ship, let's say a Punisher, but you can't fly a Federation Navy Comet because it's too expensive for a new player. Especially if you learn the game and don't have a great way to farm ISK. Would you call using a wallet to then buy Plex to sell to then get a Navy Comet pay to win? I guess we do, right? In EVE Echoes you cannot buy that progress. You have to skill the time.
Because it's a purely arbitrary gating system. It's a purely arbitrary system that just gates the content off from players.
Alright, so you rather want new players to be able to buy the Navy Comet and be a better player because it's a better ship than to actually hold players unable to pay for their progress. I'm not sure I follow.
And it means nothing. Like, I wouldn't mind a tech level system that unlocked stuff relevant. Like, if you wanted to fly a Slasher 2 interceptor, yeah, you should have to train expert frigate skills and that.
Yes, this would be the best option for skills. We could focus train for specific tasks and specific ships, and paying with a wallet would not get you those endgame frigates.
Then it would unlock it that way. I'm not saying do away with tech levels completely and let, like, level 1, brand new first day players undock a Typhoon 2 or, a carrier or something, but
I would not mind that at all. Get rid of the tech level, a much better game. If they want to fly a Typhoon in day 2, let them.
Having the progression meaning something rather than just, oh, you've waited for 10 months while paying for a mega, because that's what it is right now. And it's that fact that essentially you need to be all the way up at tech level 10 in order to even compete anymore. It really pushes away new players, and that is a really bad point.
Yeah, sure it is. But it also ensures you in a way that you know the game. Just remember that time is still time without the tech level. You would lose the Typhoon 2 on day 2 in this game. I would say at least half the tech level time, like half a year to T10, that would kind of be enough to learn the basics. So yeah, in a way I do agree.
Now the third point I've noted down is the market. Being able to see this from anywhere has had a profound impact on the game by essentially centralizing all of the markets into one location, Jita. This creates an everyone versus everyone style market where every single seller is in competition with every single other seller. It also pretty much sounded the death knell of hauling, since nothing ever needs to be shifted around. Imagine basically, you can sit there in nullsec and you can open up the market and you can buy from Jita and you can autopilot there completely safely. You can autopilot completely safely back. But because it's all one market, it is literally everyone versus everyone. I, as a newer player, can't try and find a niche to undercut and slot into somewhere. Like in EVE Online, I could start selling stuff at Heck because, it's a little bit different to selling it at Jita, selling it at Do Dixie or Amar or Rents or whatever.
I 100% agree. Now, I do want to know what you're selling in Heck as a new player that makes you money. And I'm not talking about a few ISK. I mean, how do you make money selling stuff in Heck as a new player? That would be interesting. I'm not saying it's not working. I'm just saying in EVE Online, there's not much margin either.
We don't get that in Echoes. It's all one market, all one station, which means everyone's competing, which means just whoever has the basic skills or the longest time to sit in game and grind gets everything, and no one else gets anything.
Yeah, I'm actually playing 100%, and I got the skills, but I don't get everything. I'm just kidding.
And that has really sucked the life out of industry. And this does twin in with that autopilot offline. Now, this is a system that I really enjoy, and I think it does benefit Echoes massively.
It's a very cool feature, but it kind of hurts the game in some parts that they do not address.
At first, it wasn't really an issue at all either. This only became noticeable when interceptors became readily available and popular. Being able to offline autopilot through high sec or low sec, not an issue to me at all. It's just the ability to autopilot with almost certain safety through null sec provides too much safety.
I agree with you here. 100%.
Again, this was the nail in the coffin of hauling, as even nullsec players could easily move to and from Jita with little worry. But essentially, nullsec is supposed to be dangerous. Ships are supposed to be destroyed, and by having ships destroyed, you have then ships that need to be replaced and built, and that keeps industry going. We don't have that in Echoes because nothing gets destroyed because it's way too safe.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest issues in the game, even bigger than the wallet events that we have. Stuff keeps piling up, ships don't need to be replaced, and this is also tied with insurance. This damn insurance, mixed with bad building prices, gets me all the time. And if insurance would have only worked a bit different, then it would have all been fine. There are several ways it could work, as only usable for prototype ships or players below a certain tech level. Anyway, I will not get into that whole thing right now, but the point is, there is a solution, and this is the issue.
This leads into insurance. Now, I maintain that insurance isn't the biggest problem within
What?
industry, and
It's not the biggest problem? Alright, so what is the biggest issue?
I do maintain it's not the biggest industry. Is it a big problem? Yes, it is, but does fixing that on its own? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but what is the biggest issue? I'm intrigued.
But essentially, it's certainly the most obvious problem, for sure.
For sure.
Regardless, this was the first sign that industry was essentially an afterthought to the developers, and perhaps even competition to the ability to swipe your wallet. The introduction of insurance points as a system that you could just swipe for to get your ship back certainly basically gave us this weird dichotomy between, do I swipe to get a ship back, or do I pay an industrialist to get a ship back? That's the biggest problem with industry, and I don't...
Oh, insurance. I agree.
With insurance. And I don't think a lot of people talk about it like that. I don't know. I still don't...
Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone's talking about it, but I for sure talk about it. That is the biggest issue, man. Yeah.
I don't think it's the biggest problem.
It's not the biggest problem? Ah, alright, okay. Alright, what's the biggest problem?
But it definitely was a strong nail in the coffin of industry, and it does need changing. I've said this before, it needs changing. But there's so much in industry that needs changing, and I do honestly think that it's just that NetEase looks at industry as competition for you swiping your credit card, and thus they're never going to fully implement it. Even if our development team want it, the higher-ups are never going to allow it to happen.
Maybe. Is that the biggest issue?
Now, the next point I've made is lack of PvE. Around about Tech 7, running Tech 10 overseas was tough and required a fleet. We had lucrative, challenging content. Unfortunately, the Tech 10 arms race and power creep has made most PvE menial, because it was never truly iterated on. Now, you'll notice that this lack of iteration becomes a running theme in my notes here. Essentially, PvE has been the same since the start of the game. It's
That's true.
warp to site, shoot everything, warp to next site, shoot everything.
Yeah, very true.
And the AI of the rats is terrible. It's easy to exploit. Frigates fly at you in a straight line. They don't try and move around you. They don't try and flank you. And quite frankly, even if they did, a couple of webs in your set these days.
Well, the rats are easy to exploit in EVE Online too, since you like to compare them. The missions are boring as hell, and it's only when you do arcs or incursions or Triglavian fights or whatever that EVE Online PvE is harder. Rats in the belts in nullsec is very easy too. I'm sure they do some more stuff that I guess they do in EVE Echoes, but it's still very exploitable. I'd say let NetEase implement everything first, and yeah, sure. How long is that gonna take?
PvE is boring. And rather than try and fix PvE, they've now given you a way to pay to automate it.
Okay, are you talking about AI? Farming for gold in WoW was boring too, but you kinda needed it to get the amount to be able to write to the instances back in the day, and nowadays you're just porting around in WoW. And just because you remove some boring parts in a game, does that actually make the game better? I don't think it has nothing to do with a great game.
And yeah, it's that lack of iteration, I think, becomes a big running theme in this game. There's a lot you could do to make PvE more interesting, like gating different anomalies to different size ships, using acceleration gates so that you are forced in at 0, rather than being able to warp in at 100 and just snipe everything.
As a brawler, I never do my missions from 100k. I warp in at 0 every time, but it's just as mindless as sniping. It's no difference.
There's a lot of problems with PvE, and probably way too many to get into individually in this video, or it's going to be an hour long, half of which is just me talking about how to fix PvE. I've talked about all this in other videos, so, keep an eye out and check what I've said in those ones, I guess. Then we have infinite potential faucets. EVE has always been a sandbox characterized by its player-driven economy and market. Now, unfortunately, Echoes has several infinite potential faucets. Now, in basic terms, this is when the game has the potential to infinitely spawn materials. So the more players are farming content, the more materials are harvested into the economy with no upper limit.
As every other game?
And this is found in ISK harvesting through near-infinite ratting income, with modules being dropped from those same sites, which also provides an infinite potential faucet of reprocessing materials, and with ores, with infinitely respawning belts. This has absolutely flooded the game with ever-increasing ISK, inflating market prices and plex, infinite module supply which floods the market driving their values down, and infinite ores which does the same thing and pushes industry further to the brink by leaving ores practically valueless.
Okay, so making ore and ISK limited is a way to fix it, but I'm not sure that fixes the issues without creating a ton more. Limiting the ore mined by each person would be like when they limited the encounters you could do. That's not the way to go. I still feel that fixing what you do with the ores and the ISK is the best way, because that does not limit players' time in the game, because limiting all that we can do will only lead us to logging off as soon as all those chores are done. And EVE Echoes do have a new faucet, the corporation donation system. This lets corporations donate hundreds of items to Concord every week. It's not a perfect solution, but it does already show in the market today. We can just hope that we get more of this stuff, since blowing up ships do not let us lose stuff, still.
Even the addition of new sinks cannot fix this. The supply must be addressed. And the reason that the new additions cannot fix this is because, think about it, you can sit there and say, oh, we're adding new station upgrades, and they're going to cost you 90 billion ISK worth of stuff. Yeah, why do you want to build that? You want to build it because it gives you quality of life upgrades afterwards. So you spend 90 billion, and then the new quality of life upgrades help you farm that 90 billion back quicker than it was before.
Yeah, we're upgrading stuff to be more efficient. Is that a bad mechanic? For example, in EVE Online, when you fly a Caracal, and you can finally afford to buy a Caracal Navy, with more power and more tank, yeah, that's a feeling that's bad for the game, because now you're more effective. Honestly, this is actually why we do anything in games, to be better.
So you haven't sunk any ISK, you've just temporarily got rid of it, and now you're actually helping people to gain even more than they had before. And it's the same with ore sinks. Look at the Rorqual. The Rorqual is a humongous ore sink, but it's a one-off. Once you've built a Rorqual, you are then harvesting infinitely more ores than you were before. So you've spent all of that ores, but now you're using that thing to gain even more than you had in the first place.
One question, I do like that we're talking about all these issues, and I do see the issue, right? It's very simple, it's very clear. But why would we buy a Rorqual if it doesn't mine better? Doesn't that create even more issues?
If you don't see that as a problem, I don't know what to suggest, but there is a reason that EVE Online has an actual team of economists that help set up its economy.
Yeah, it is a problem. And I guess that is why they have economists in EVE Online. And I guess that's the issue we have in real life too. You get a better job, you make more money, you buy a bigger house that makes you pay more money. But that's life, right? It's living, it's not the end goal, it's what you do with your life. It's what you do with the game that matters. I don't know, it is an issue, I agree. But what if they would have given us other mining ships that is worse than what you already have? Would you even look at them?
Echoes doesn't, and it's clear that they don't care about this. Scanning.
Yeah, they don't really care about it in the terms that we think. Instead of what I would say would have been the best way is if we could get a Rorqual that mines better and then we get more minerals, then we can just pile that, in our hangars and see how much we have. Or we can buy some, as you say, upgrades or whatever to be even better. Or they can release even bigger ships so we can do it even better. And then even bigger ships. I mean, it kind of sounds like every game. That's what we do, man. That's what we do.
Is the next one I've got notes on, but not for the reasons that some of you may be thinking. Now, scanning was meant to provide danger and risk to storyline runners who were essentially printing ISK in bad hair day. Jump into bad hair day, farm the entire site completely safely, use that ISK to buy another bad hair day plus a load of profit, and just keep going.
Yeah, I agree. But it's not everyone who play the game just because it's fun. Some people want to progress. And if there's a better way to progress, min-maxing as it's called, people will go that route. They will min-max everything. Now, I personally don't do it, and I'm pretty sure you don't do it either, Benzie. You just enjoying the game, which is, in my opinion, the best way to enjoy the game. But some people don't. Some people enjoy the game because they can do stuff perfectly. And I think it's a matter of having the thought, like, I got 2 hours to play today. Either I go and do this, that makes me 20 million, or I go and do that, which is a little bit more boring, but it gives me 200 million. And they choose the latter. There's nothing wrong with it.
Now, all this did was chase those players into completely safe high-sec islands like Claralam. Printing ISK has always been an issue due to how it causes inflation in the game, but scanning was so poorly implemented with so little counterplay that it just cemented high-sec and null-sec as the two options.
I agree. The scanning is still very bad.
Completely killed low-sec. Because null-sec, if you are deep enough in your own empire space, is completely safe. Like, if you're out ratting in a carrier and someone says, hey, there's a load of hostiles moving down the pipe towards us, you dock up and you never lose a ship.
Yeah, I agree. I don't lose my ships in nullsec, but many people do.
Or Claralam, it's not as, lucrative. You don't earn as much ISK in high sec as you do low sec.
No, it's a lot worse.
But it is 100% safe. Like, there is no real way to lose your ship.
People lose their ships because it's so boring, so they fall asleep. And if you're comparing being very, very safe in nullsec and never lose your ship, then a few times losing the ships in Claralam because you fall asleep, that's actually more dangerous than.
Unless you are literally an idiot and just walk to a site, switch everything off, put your phone down and walk away and put the kettle on.
Or fall asleep.
So, there's no risk. There's no risk there anymore in those two positions, and it's because scanning was so risky in the middle ground. Low sec is completely dead, and it polarized everyone to either high sec or null sec.
Yeah, I agree. This is bad. This is bad.
Yeah, way to go. No counterplay. There needed to be some kind of meaningful counterplay in there, and there just never was. Now, lack of iteration, I've mentioned, is a point that comes up time and time again. Nihilist dead space, nihilist compressed space, faction war games, exploration, heck, even the basic encounter system. These are all the starts of awesome gameplay mechanics and systems, but due to how NetEase works, with random teams assigned to work on the game, nothing ever gets actually iterated on.
Yeah, I agree.
Each of these still exist almost identically to how they were at the start, which means they're rarely utilised since they're now just made irrelevant by every new thing that comes out. Think about it. By the time you upgrade to the next tier, all the previous stuff is completely forgotten about, right? Which means we have a ton of redundant content in the game. It would be easy to go back and just fix a load of these things. Make this content exciting, make it engaging, give it a purpose, but it's never going to happen. I mean, a key example of this is something like the Crimson Harvest, frequently considered to be the best event that NetEase ever ran, only to never be run again, never be utilised again.
It was also the first real event that we ever got, pretty much like the real event. It was when we almost didn't have battleships. It was new, it was fresh, and we also did not know what would come next. It was a good one, I agree, but the game was also very new. I do miss it. And it would be nice to have it back to see if it actually was as good as we remember. But I'm pretty sure that the feeling would be different today.
Crimson Harvest was an excellent event that had players interacting and pushing new exciting content. Unfortunately, it wasn't easily monetized and had bad experiences for those in high sec who would often be ratting the sites only to have the loot ninjaed. Now, rather than try and fix this by looking at how you could change this and work on it, no, because NetEase never iterate, only add new content, it's been roundly ignored, and we just try something new.
Yeah, they don't use what they got. It is sad, but it is true that many ideas could have been done proper, but never was.
It's the approach of basically throwing something else onto the fire and hoping that reignites everything. And it's how NetEase as a company operates. It's not just for Eve Echoes. Look at any NetEase game ever, and it is pretty much what...
Look at any mobile game. Please.
what they do on those. It's just sad that in Echoes, it really damages the game. In some other games, it works, like adding new modes, adding new gameplay, adding new weapons. If you're looking at something like adding, Knives Out, new gameplay modes, new weapons, new skins, just stuff that you can slap on and add in, works. In Echoes, it doesn't.
So it doesn't work in Echoes? I would say new skins, new ships, it what makes Eve Echoes work. I know that many do not agree with me here, but the skins and the nanocores, except the Capital Pure Wallet nanocores, is what makes this game so unique. EVE Online, a game that I played for 20 years, looks boring compared to EVE Echoes. Skins are not even close to as nice, and making ship personalized is a big thing for me. Now EVE Online is superior in many ways, but saying that skins and game modes does not work on EVE Echoes is completely wrong. EVE Echoes is a mobile game, it's intended for mobile players, and this comparison between EVE Online and EVE Echoes is what makes EVE Echoes look bad.
Because of how the game works. Now, nanocores are next on my list. This was a big one. Prior to launch, NetEase had promised, in fact, that Omega was the only necessary payment and that any other payment would never be tied to stats or gameplay.
So, developers lie. What a shock.
This was a promise that they literally put in writing, that because this was going to be an unusual game in requiring a monthly subscription to run, that's how they were going to monetize it. They didn't need pay-to-win mechanics.
Yeah, they didn't need it, but that is what works, unfortunately.
And for like a year and a half, they held to that until nanocores. And suddenly that was the big broken promise. Big broken promise. Now, at first, these were poised to be something exciting that players would build themselves. We would go into the new Nihilist dead spaces, grab these materials, and build these nanocores ourselves. It was an industrial thing. Unfortunately, they quickly became the selling point of Concord passes and the rewards for hugely lucrative and predatory lucky box events and interstellar bazaars. This isn't even mentioning that so many having abilities on modes that would utterly destroy game balance.
Oh man, I so agree. The Interstellar Bazaar, the most broken monetization scheme ever. They basically changed pay to win into pay to maybe win if you're lucky. Otherwise, you can pay again. But nanocores, like, look at every other game out here today. Pay to win is a thing because pay to profit a game is a thing. It is done because players respond to this. And it's nothing unique with this, being on a mobile game for that matter. A few games have non-pay to win mechanics, but even EVE Online is pay to win. They even gave mining ships in packs. EVE Online is, in the same sense, pay to win. Or pay to lose more as I call it. The real devil in EVE Echoes regards to pay to win is the damn implants, not the nanocores. And I would assume that when people cry about nanocores, it's because of Death Wish and the warp core stabs. And that's only like one type of nanocore. Now we have actually a second one. Maybe there is a third one, but every other nanocore is, it's not that big of a deal.
I'm looking at U-Glaze mode. Like, what is that? Press a button to ignore game mechanics. That's just literally an enticing pay-to-win function.
No, it's press a button to not be webbed, right? Or did I get that wrong?
That is there purely to get people to spend and buy the next big exciting thing.
Do you know that there's a button on Rorco in EVE Online that when you press that, you're unkillable for 15 minutes so that your friends can help you? I'm just saying.
We've got a new Interstellar Bazaar going on right now. Can you buy any of it in-game? No. You have to use Aurum. In fact, the freaking free boxes that you get each day still require you to make an actual payment to unlock them, or they're hot garbage.
Yeah, you need to get the key. It's been like that for every box, I think. So it's nothing new here, but yeah, it sucks, man.
You want the actual skins rather than the timed ones or just random materials that are worthless. Yeah, you have to buy keys for Aurum, not even for Plex, for Aurum. Which means even the free stuff is locked behind paywalls.
Yeah, I want to laugh too, actually. That's crazy.
This would be a running theme. Battleships, implants, capitals, pushing these together because they're emblematic of the same thing. NetEase and the bigger is better approach. For years, Echoes laboured with battleships, simply being able to do everything better than other ships could. They were a simple goal for pretty much all pilots. Pick a battleship, aim for that, and that's what you would aim for. They were the simple goal for pretty much every pilot in the game, and NetEase focused them almost exclusively for literally years.
All right, yeah.
Unfortunately, what we originally thought to be just bad game design ended up being entirely intentional. Get everyone to follow the bigger is better approach, get them to upgrade one ship, only to move the goalposts back and introduce the next bigger is better thing for folks to buy and train into.
This is how most MMOs are today. I do agree that it's not what suits EVE, but expansions generally means new gear, new stuff to farm, more stuff to put money into. That's what a expansion thing is.
Get an upgrade nanocores for, etc. This is the business now. This is the entire reason for EVE Echoes. That is the gameplay loop. Basically, as soon as you're maxed out to the end of the game, they push the end further back and then charge you more for it. Enjoy your supercarriers and titans.
That's literally any other game. Many of your problems with EVE Echoes, it seems to be a general problem with mobile games today. I can't say I disagree though.
Essentially, congratulations, you've maxed out a battleship. Cool. You think you're at the top of the game? Nope, we're going to add carriers and dreadnoughts. Now you're going to have to spend more on nanocores for them. You're going to have to grind more for those. Oh, what's that? You've nearly maxed those out? Well, here's implants. Good luck maxing those out. Oh, you've nearly maxed that out? Well, here's super carriers. Oh, you've nearly maxed that out? Here's titans.
And this is why you need the rock wall. And this is why you farm with bigger ships. This is the reason why you farm. It doesn't sound that stupid.
That is the entire gameplay loop now. They dangle the new, exciting, big end game in front of you. And then you buy into it, and the costs are more expensive than they were last time. It's always more expensive than it was last time. And then suddenly, as soon as you think you're done with that, the next big thing comes out.
It is more expensive every time, because every time you get better stuff. I agree it's a crappy idea, but this is how games are.
The cycle continues.
There is no end game. I just want to say there is no end game. There is no battleships is the biggest one. Get that, get all the implants that you need, get the nanocore you need. Then you're all set. Now, what are you going to do, Benzie? What are you going to do with the battleships? If there is no more battleships, if there is no bigger ships, what are you going to do? Are you going to grind the same encounters all the time? I mean, sure, they can make encounters more interesting, but why do you going to grind? What do you need the ISK for if you're not going to upgrade anything? I don't understand this part.
Corporations clash, the AI nanocore, etc. The sunken cost fallacy is what I've actually put this one under. Now, rather than fixing the game, NetEase have decided to simply stop listening to what players want and have started telling them instead. This has resulted in half-baked, practically useless implementations. Rather than simply apologise or even just quietly moving on, NetEase doubles down and starts fixing these additions by throwing even more resources at them. Development time that could be used fixing the real issues with the game is instead spent incentivizing players to use systems and mechanics that they never wanted or asked for in the first place.
That's very true. This could have been a lot better.
AI Nanocore is a great example of this. Rather than make the gameplay interesting, no, we're just going to sell you a way to automate it. And then when that doesn't work, we're going to spend a load of time and effort getting that actually fully functional. And then we're going to add all these other new things in that make that the next big thing to spend into as well. Because now you need to buy all these upgrade materials and all these nanocores get consumed and. Same with Corporations Clash. That was added as a PvP mode that would have no destruction in it, and no one started using it. No one used it. And then they started incentivizing it. Hey, come and do this. We'll do tournaments in it. We'll do this. We'll add prizes into it. They added something that nobody wanted, and then when nobody used it, instead of just going, oh, well, okay, oops, maybe we should start listening, no, they try to incite us to use it, incentivize us to use it. We say we don't want this, they go, yeah, you do, and you're going to use it anyway, because that's all there is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, you talked about AI a little bit here and there, you just briefly touched it again. And you're talking about money printing. AI is not money printing more than capital anomaly farming in nullsec. It's not like rocal mining or even multi-boxing overall. It kinda is a way for people who work a lot in real life to have a chance to make some ISK, AFK, to be able to use their space time doing the stuff that they really rather want to do without putting money into it. The AI does not help netties. It's a crappy way to make players who can't pay a few bucks to fund their time, to make the ISK required to buy some new ships or even pay for their IP. The AI is not printing that much money. And if people think, well, if everyone's doing it, then it's a problem, then no, not really. Because if everyone is doing it, then it's a solution. It's Netty's way to keep people playing the game, because the people who play the game uses the AI. If people don't pay for the AI, then the AI is not going to be used, then the AI is not going to be a problem. So the AI is not an issue, or anything that makes Eve Echoes a bad game. It's a mobile game that have an AFK feature that is actually so bad that thinking that if you put like 8 billion into an AI core, it's gonna take you half a year to get back those money. So it's not as bad as the capital in HiSec, which you have not talked about yet, which is weird.
Finally, refusal to address any of these issues, and this is ultimately the biggest one. Because of the aforementioned unwillingness or inability, depending on your generosity, to iterate on anything previously added to the game, each of these issues has steadily grown in scope and expanse over the duration of the game's lifespan.
Oh, this is exciting. What can it be?
What may have been minor and easily addressable concerns have now ballooned into individually game-breaking issues that have clustered together into the sprawling omni-shambles that we now recognise as Echoes.
I don't even understand half what that meant. Did you say that Eve Echoes is a beautiful game?
The tech level system.
Yeah, the tech level system. Yeah, it is better. You're going back to that? Okay.
Would have been such an easy thing to fix to incite new players to come into the game and stick around. But now add that with the whole bigger is better approach and the fact that everyone has bought into that because they have pushed people and told people your battleships are the best things to have. Oh, now carriers and dreadnoughts are the best things to have. Oh,
no, they didn't. They never said that. I have to go back to it. I might, rant a little bit. But if you look at World of Warcraft, the best gear back in the day is not the best gear today. And you do get that gear. You do farm for it every week. It takes you 14 weeks if you get the drop that you want every week. And then you put enchants on it. You put money into it. You do everything on it. And then something else comes along. And then you get some new gear and you put new enchants on it. You farm for new stuff. This is how stuff works. I don't understand, but that does not mean that crapping over the game, over a system that all games use today. I don't think it's fair. Cry about the insurance, cry about, the insurance, cry about the tech tree. Sure. The pay to win, yeah, you can be pissed off about that. I do agree that. But that people can fly bigger and better ships, I don't think it's valid. I mean, sure, you might love fly around in frigates in EVE Online, but there is some bigger ships there, my friend, and they could blow you up.
Now super carriers are the best things to have. If they were to actually go back and balance the game, they've lied again. And that risks pushing even more players out of the game. They could try and fix industry, but it's too late now because industry is completely broken to the point where people are used to just spending money, and thus NetEase makes more money by not fixing industry.
It's never too late.
Each of those 15 points is in itself a big problem, but the fact that they then clump together, they all hook into each other, makes this a game that really is now going to struggle to ever stay alive. I was talking in the CC chat with some of the guys recently. I won't mention names, but honestly, I don't think people are idiots, and people sit there and go, you keep calling us idiots. No, I say you act like idiots.
Alright, this was my comment to your video, Benzie. I do fully get where you're at, and I also feel the same way about many things. But honestly, Eve Echoes never turned out the way I wanted. As the same for many other games. Developers usually have their own idea, and even if they try to convey their idea, it's easy to have some vital information is lost, or in the gaming era we live today, hidden on purpose. So Eve Echoes is not like I wanted it to be. It's a very different game from what many players dreamt it would be like. EVE Online in your pocket. What a dream it was. And the majority of people often decides what's good or bad. So, if we listen to the majority of EVE Echoes players, the game is bad. Now, I don't think it's that easy. We have to ask who is the majority. And the majority who feels bad about this game is actually players who references EVE Online. And yeah, it is a very valid game group, because EVE Online, it is a great game. But is this gaming group custom to mobile games? Is it just so that the two clashes a bit here? Because many hardcore gamers would never even download a game on their phone. But when their genre of games get into the phone and they try it, they're overwhelmed with the mobile structure of making money. I'm not saying this is the whole story, but I do say it's something that people neglect. If more mobile gamers would play EVE Online, I'm pretty certain that we would see a different kind of reaction, because there are far worse monetizations out there. And most of those games only have a power score. More money, more power equals guaranteed win. My friends and my fellow pilots, and even you who are thinking about trying this game, if you spend money here, there is no guarantee that you win. And for you to lose anything that you acquire in EVE Echoes, all you need is bad luck. Bye bye now.